A global trade war begins, the US versus Europe. The stage is set, the battle lines are drawn. The world watches as economic titans clash. The world stood on the precipice of a new era as the United States and Europe, two economic titans, clashed over trade policies that would redefine the landscape of global commerce. It began with a bold move by the United States, which imposed a staggering 25% tariff on steel and aluminum imports. This decision sent shockwaves through the international market, igniting a fierce response from France, which was quick to retaliate with its own tariffs on American goods. The initial skirmish was just the spark that ignited a broader conflagration, one that threatened to dismantle the complex web of global supply chains that had taken decades to build. As the news of the tariff spread, the immediate consequences became evident. Trade relations between the United States and France, once characterized by mutual benefit and cooperation, rapidly soured. French automakers, such as Renault and Peugeot, immediately felt the impact as the cost of imported steel and aluminum skyrocketed. These materials were crucial for production, and with their prices soaring, the manufacturers faced an untenable situation. Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes-Benz, the giants of the German automotive industry, found themselves in a similar predicament, grappling with rising production costs that threatened their competitiveness in both domestic and international markets. The ramifications were felt almost instantly. Automakers already operating on thin profit margins had to make tough decisions. As production costs rose, the likelihood of passing those costs on to consumers became increasingly apparent. The prospect of higher car prices loomed large, and with consumer confidence already teetering, sales began to decline. The once bustling showrooms of Renault and Peugeot saw fewer customers, while the German giants struggled to maintain their foothold in a market that was becoming increasingly volatile. Job losses began to mount, particularly in regions where manufacturing was a lifeline for local economies. The once vibrant factories, filled with the hum of machinery and the chatter of workers, now echoed with uncertainty and fear. In the midst of this turmoil, France sought to forge new alliances, particularly with China. As tensions with the United States escalated, the French government recognized an opportunity to pivot toward the east. China, with its vast market and insatiable appetite for imported goods, emerged as a promising partner. French President Emmanuel Macron, ever the strategist, envisioned a partnership that could not only mitigate the impact of the trade war, but also shift the balance of global economic power. The prospect of strengthened ties with China sent ripples through the European Union, prompting discussions about a collective response to the threats posed by American tariffs. As the European Union prepared for a counteroffensive, leaders convened to outline potential measures against U.S. imports. The mood was resolute. They understood that the stakes were high. President Macron expressed determination to defend European interests, emphasizing the need for unity among member states. The EU was not merely a collection of nations. It was a formidable economic bloc that could wield significant influence on the global stage. Discussions ranged from targeted tariffs on American products to stricter regulations on U.S. companies operating within Europe. The goal was clear: to demonstrate that Europe would not be a passive player in this escalating trade war. The uncertainty surrounding the future of these economic tensions loomed large. Would the conflict escalate into an all-out trade war, or could diplomatic efforts bring about a resolution? The global economy, already precarious, was at a crossroads. Markets reacted with volatility as investors grappled with the potential fallout. The specter of a prolonged trade war raised questions about the future of multinational companies that relied on seamless supply chains. Industries that had thrived on globalization now faced the possibility of fragmentation, forcing them to reconsider their strategies and operations. The stakes were high not only for the automakers but for the broader economic landscape. If tariffs continued to rise, the repercussions would extend beyond the automotive sector, affecting everything from agricultural exports to technology. The interconnectedness of the global economy meant that no nation could remain insulated from the fallout. Economists warned of a potential recession if the trade war escalated, with both the United States and Europe standing to lose significantly. As the situation unfolded, the world watched with bated breath. The clash between the United States and Europe was not merely a battle over tariffs. It was a struggle for economic dominance in an increasingly multipolar world. The rise of China as a key player added another layer of complexity to the equation. France's pivot toward China could signal a shift in alliances that might challenge U.S. trade supremacy. The potential for new trade agreements and partnerships could reshape the dynamics of global commerce in ways that were yet to be fully understood. In the face of such uncertainty, the calls for diplomacy grew louder. Business leaders from both sides urged their governments to seek common ground, emphasizing the importance of collaboration over confrontation. The lessons of history reminded everyone that trade wars often lead to unintended consequences, harming not just the economies involved, but also the livelihoods of ordinary people. The hope remained that cooler heads could prevail, that negotiations could take precedence over tariffs, and that the global economy could find a path toward stability. The narrative of the trade war between the United States and Europe was still being written, and its outcome remained shrouded in uncertainty. As leaders on both sides grappled with their next moves, the world held its breath, aware that the decisions made in the coming weeks and months would have far-reaching implications. The clash of titans was not just about steel and aluminum. It was about the future of global trade, the balance of power, and the intricate ties that bind economies together. In this precarious moment, the fate of nations hung in the balance, and the potential for transformative shifts in trade relations loomed on the horizon. Stay tuned. The battle is just beginning.